It's been well over 60 years since the last Edsel was built, yet two Edsel model names are still in use today. If you enjoy obscure automotive history, this is the episode for you. Model names that outlived the Edsel is today's topic here on Hubcap Club. Ranger, Pacer, Corsair, Citation. Back in 1956, all four were on the shortlist to be chosen as the name of Ford's new medium-priced marque. Then Ford chairman Ernie Breech sabotaged the whole venture by mandating the name Edsel. It was the least popular name under consideration. Even the Ford family didn't want the car named after Henry Ford's son. As a consolation prize, Ranger, Pacer, Corsair, and Citation became the model names for 1958 Edsels. Ranger and Pacer would be the lower-priced Ford-based models, while Corsair and Citation were the more premium Mercury-based models. Ford spent billions in today's dollars to launch Edsel, and they had high hopes for this lineup. Instead, the Edsel was the floppiest of flops, a ridiculed symbol of utter failure, canceled after just over 2 years on the market, and only a month after the 1960 models went on sale. After this dismal performance, there's never been another car named Edsel, and you'd probably think the Edsel's model names would also be kryptonite to car makers. Well, you'd be wrong. All four of these names have reappeared over the years on cars and trucks sold in the U.S. market. Two are still found on brand new vehicles on car lots today. And I'm not forgetting the station wagon names. I'll get to those a little later in the episode. Let's take a look at the history of each Edsel nameplate. Let's start with Ranger, the name given to the lowest priced Edsel. This name actually dates back to the early days of motoring. The Ranger Automobile Company of Chicago produced cars from 1907 to 1910. Here's an ad from the final year of production. Like so many car makers of this era, the Ranger Automobile Company went belly up before it really got established. The second car named Ranger came in 1920 from the Southern Motors Manufacturing Association of Houston, Texas. Only a handful of cars were ever built, and just one survives today. That's because this Ranger was never actually slated for mass production. Instead, it was part of a stock fraud scheme in which 19 people were indicted. That's a shame, because it's reported to have been a well-engineered and assembled car. Fast forward 35 years. Edsel debuted in September 1957 with Ranger as the lowest priced model. Here are 1958, 59, and 60 versions. Ranger would be the only one of the four Edsel names to survive through all three model years. After Edsel was discontinued in November 1959, the Ranger name sat on the shelf until 1965, when it was reintroduced as a premium trim level for Ford F-150 pickups, and later also for Ford Broncos starting in 1972. It was used this way through the early 1980s. Ford was obviously partial to the Ranger name because the next thing they did was to slap it on their new compact pickup, launched in 1983. After a successful run of almost 30 years, the Ranger was discontinued after 2012. But not for long. In 2019, just 7 years later, the Ranger rode again as a mid-size pickup and is still in production today. Ranger seems like a name best suited to a working vehicle, evoking park rangers, Texas Rangers, and maybe even the Lone Ranger. It also comes in silver. The next step up from the Ranger in the 1958 Edsel lineup was the Pacer. It was Edsel chief stylist Roy Brown Jr.'s favorite of all the Edsels. But the Edsel Pacer nameplate only lasted 1 year, as the model lineup was slashed from 4 models to just 2 for 1959, and Pacer didn't make the cut. The Pacer name lay dormant until 1975, when AMC decided to use it for its new compact, marketed as the first wide small car. Originally, the Pacer was meant to rock front-wheel drive and a Wankel rotary engine, but it ended up with a conventional straight-six and rear-wheel drive. As with the Edsel's infamous horse collar grille, the AMC Pacer's jelly bean styling was controversial and not well received by the public. With 37% of the car covered in glass, the Pacer offered unmatched panoramic visibility. The downside? You were essentially driving a greenhouse. It made the AC work overtime, left the occupants fully visible to the world, and guaranteed the car's derisive nickname, the fishbowl. 1980 was the end of the road. At this point, the hood and grille had been reworked to be more conventionally upright, and you could even buy a station wagon Pacer with wood grain trim. Like Edsel, the AMC Pacer was not a success, and its unrecouped development cost almost tanked AMC. Today, the Pacer trademark registration is dead and canceled, so if any car maker wants to pick up the Pacer, the name is available. The Corsair was the next step up in the 1958 Edsel lineup, the lower priced of the two Mercury-based models, and one of the few cars to wear a pirate-themed name. The Mercury Marauder is the only other one that comes to mind. Corsair was also used for the top-level trim for 1959 Edsels, but was dropped for 1960. The name vanished until 2020, when it was reintroduced on a Lincoln compact SUV, a handsome yet conservative design. The Lincoln Corsair is still in production today with few changes, and it's currently Lincoln's best-selling model. Time for a restyle? No, in typical Detroit fashion, the Corsair will be discontinued after the 2026 model year. Arrgh! Citation was the top-of-the-line 1958 Edsel and a one-year-only model. I always thought Citation was an odd name for a car. While it can signify recognition of a praiseworthy act or achievement, it also can mean an unwanted court summons, as in a traffic citation. Nobody wants their car or its driver to be a serial recipient of citations. Anyway, like the Pacer, this is another example of a car name jumping from one car maker to another. In this case, from Ford to GM. Chevrolet introduced its new compact car named Citation for the 1980 model year, based on the redesigned GM X-Body platform. The Citation was Chevy's first compact with front-wheel drive and a transversely mounted engine, with fairly attractive, if somewhat bland, styling. It was initially a massive hit, even being named Motor Trend Car of the Year. But all was not as it seemed. Word is that GM provided car magazines like Motor Trend and Car and Driver specially modified Citations for testing. These cars were essentially re-engineered to mask some of the worst handling and braking characteristics. In many ways, the Citation epitomized the Malaise era of American cars. Poorly assembled, rust-prone, and subject to a string of mandatory recalls for both mechanical and safety issues. It really damaged GM's reputation when it could least afford it. It's not surprising that GM's trademark for Citation is long dead and abandoned. As promised, it's time to cover the Edsel station wagon names. The 1958 Edsel was launched with 3 wagons: the 2-door Roundup, the 4-door Villager, and the top-of-the-line Bermuda with faux wood paneling. For those of you who love all things Edsel, I made a couple of other videos you might find interesting. In the first, I said a thing or two about the styling of Edsel wagons, and the other is a deep dive into the roots of Edsel styling overall. I recommend them both highly, although I may be a tad biased. Links in the description. The entry-level 1958 Edsel Roundup is a really cool 2-door wagon, even if its styling is a little eccentric. It must be in good taste, though, because Martha Stewart owns one. The name seems appropriate for a wagon, obviously a nod to the Ford Ranch wagon on which it's based. As far as I'm aware, no other car has worn the Roundup name and likely never will, since it's now inextricably linked to a very controversial herbicide. Add 2 doors to the Roundup and you have the Edsel Villager, based on the Ford Country sedan. Introduced for 1958, Villager continued as the only Edsel wagon offered for the 59 and 60 model years. After Edsel was discontinued, the Villager nameplate went back into service just 2 years later. this time for Mercury. From 1962 to 1984, Villager was used as the nameplate for many premium Mercury wagons with faux wood trim, just like Squire was used for Fords. Interesting because the Edsel Villager did not feature wood grain trim. In 1993, Mercury partnered with Nissan to produce the front-wheel drive Mercury Villager minivan, built through 2002. Today, the trademark registration is dead. I guess it doesn't take a Villager after all. Here's the 1958 Edsel Bermuda. This is the line-topping wagon with faux wood, and it was a one-year-only model. These cars have amazingly cool interiors. The Edsel Bermuda shared a name with another 50s car from a few years earlier, a compact car made by Willis. This make was originally called Aero Willis when introduced in 1952, a well-styled compact car with dimensions similar to a 1960 Ford Falcon. It was definitely too far ahead of its time. The 1954 Aero Willis Eagle hardtop was rebranded as the 1955 Willis Bermuda. I hope you want to learn more about the Aero Willis because I'm already deep in the weeds researching a new video about this mostly forgotten car. I'm not aware of any other car named Bermuda since 1958. Although Edsel was a failure, and the Edsel name was a poor choice, all the Edsel model names were solid, even if there was no theme tying them together. It's not surprising many of these names have been recycled, and in most cases, car makers waited long enough for the Edsel stink to wear off before reusing them. Perhaps we'll see some of the dormant nameplates again on future cars and trucks. Probably not Pacer though, unless third time's truly a charm. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I read them all, and often I learn something new. And as always, I appreciate your suggestions for future topics. Working through them all may take years, but I'm in it for the long haul. Until next time, for Hubcap Club, I'm Rob.